No, but actually driving back with Rabbi Gorelik from the city a few nights ago.
Uber?
No, but we were talking about Uber, and it got me thinking. So there's not a lot, of course, because Uber is new-ish, and but just to try and apply a few ideas in halacha to, I guess, the Uber model of how they themselves open up in new cities. What are the halachic ramifications of that, and also how they deal with their employees, which, of course, is famous, and also the upcoming election. Whether or not they are contractors or employees, and how does halacha look at? How does halacha define who is a contractor and who is an employee? Now, just I assume, like we were talking before, is there anyone here who doesn't know what Uber is or what they do? Huh?
Define it again.
Okay, so Uber is essentially a way of hailing a cab, but digitally. Wherever you are, you can hail one. You don't need to go outside and stick up your hand. You press a button on an app, their app that you download. You set your location, i.e. right now I'm here at the Geshem Center. You'll then be notified that a car is on the way, how far away they are, and your bill is it's friction.
Two notifications. One, and then it tells you that it's there.
Well, just for the terms of the Shiur, we're not actually, we don't have to go that specific. And your credit card is already built into their system, and the auto pay. There's no tip. You simply get in the car. When you get to your destination, you walk out of the car. Everything's automatic. You yourself are rated as a passenger. Your driver is rated as a driver. And both of you can, in theory, be banned, either as a passenger, Yeah, you can be banned, and the driver as well, which may have implication later, can also be removed as a driver from Uber. So just a few ideas first. In most cities in the world, the ability to pick up a passenger and charge them is regulated, both for safety and obviously for money. And you have to actually purchase a medallion, which essentially gives you rights to pick up a passenger in the car. And all these taxi owners are obviously opposed to Uber. Why? Because they take away their parnasa. Uber came to town. We're here already. You're coming in. The question is, according to halacha, do they have any grounds for this complaint? We were talking before that there was a judge in California that actually ruled recently, unlike the way Uber wants to represent themselves and their relationship with the drivers, that a driver is not a contractor, rather they're an employee, and therefore they would have to pay for wear and tear and gas on the driver's car, give them employee benefits, etc., etc. And the question is, al halacha, are they considered employees or contractors, and what would be the practical difference?
You don't drive your own car?
They do drive their own car.
So what do you mean pay for it?
When a taxi is driving, when he's finished, he goes back, he fills up in the taxi depot. He doesn't go and it's covered.
No, he pays it on his own.
Pays it on his own?
But he has to buy it by them.
And so he buys them from them. Oh, so this is good. So anyway, either way,
Wear and tear or gas?
wear and tear, for example. It's not his car. He doesn't own it as a driver.
What, taxi driver?
Yeah.
Uber does.
Yeah, sure. It's his personal car.
By the way, you guys want yellow taxis also on their own car.
The medallion does. The medallion owner does. The driver not necessarily.
Dovi.
He simply.
Yellow taxi that buys medallions.
Correct. That's what we're referring to.
Car services are not.
And car services, you'll notice, are not complaining. The taxis are. Right. Okay. This tune over here. Take it with a gobble. So, now, being as this whole thing is pretty grey, normally the Shiur is someone will talk, but if open, I think is probably better, because I myself don't have a full grasp on understanding all these concepts. There's a third thing, which if we have time, maybe we'll get on, is generally a malacha on Shabbos. For example, let's just say your wife is pregnant, so you always make yachanis before Shabbos. You'll get money ready for a cab. The question is, if you're using Uber, not only do you not have to prepare money, you also just have to, instead of making a phone call, you press a button on the app. Perhaps, according to halacha, we'd say less malacha the better. are you required to use Uber? Would Halacha say, you know what, you should really download and use Uber as opposed to going through the process of Hanami. Very good. Midas Chassidus, perhaps you wouldn't have one, yeah. But anyway. Yeah. So let's first look at the conflict between Uber and the drivers and taxi drivers. So the Gemara says, there's a lot of Marmakomis here, and I didn't have time to print them all out, so I'll just go through them myself. The Gemara speaks about, Rav Huna talks about, if someone wants to open up a shop, let's call it the equivalent of Kingston Avenue. And can someone who was there prior, who has an existing business, stop this person from opening direct competition to them? The Gemara wants to bring a raya to Rav Huna, brings it from a brisa that says one fisherman who's already over the water, the second one wants to come and put down his net, he has to set himself away a certain distance away. It's Gemara in Baba Basra. The Gemara says no, because fish don't look at the fishermen, they look at the nets. Right? Which we'll come to that in a minute. Rashi says that once fish look at the bait, so then that already ties them into the net, which will then catch them right next to it. Therefore, a fisherman has to stand with his nets a distance away from an existing fisherman. Right? So, the Gemara then wants to speak about, just as an aside, the question is, let's say I have a store. This is Machlokes Tanoim. Rav Yehuda says that you can't give, let's say for example, candies. Remember in Australia, you used to open a grocery, you'd have a clown in the front of candies, all the kids would come and they would get their parents into the store. Are you allowed to do that? Is that considered perhaps unfair as competition? Rav Yehuda says no, Chachamim say that that's okay. It's okay to come in and have strong competition to someone else. Seemingly then perhaps, the more I want to say this is a raya, that someone else can open up shop. It's not a problem, because Haraya over here, we're speaking about different advantages that one competitor is trying to get over another competitor to bring shoppers to their store. However, over here, the Gemara says that Chachamim would perhaps only make it mutter to give, for example, candies in a case where the second owner can also do it, right? It's not that we're letting this person do it as opposed to anyone else. However, in a situation where one person can create an advantage for their store over another, and that would be considered ruinous to the first store owner, then perhaps the Chachamim would say you can't do that.
For example, the government regulating Uber coming in.
For example, location.
Well, here we're talking about one location. Talking, let's say, for example, one neighborhood.
Pizza store is open right next to 770.
What if?
Pizza store is open right next to 770.
Okay.
Kingston Pizza can't compete with that.
Why?
Location.
But are there shoppers who would go to Kingston Pizza because they live closer to Kingston Pizza as opposed to over there?
Same thing.
So me opening is not closing down your business. You just have to compete better.
Government regulation.
That what?
Taxis, they had an advantage because the government was regulating.
Right. Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Very good, yeah. The fact that they have to buy a license, and now it's more expensive for them to run their business. Right. But also we'll get to that, for example, in some cities in Melbourne, Australia, Uber Black needs to register their cars, which is a higher service within Uber. But Uber X, which for all intents and purposes is really the only direct competitor to taxis, they don't have to. So there you'd have a practical difference.
What's the logic? Why?
Because
You'll never understand, trust me.
I believe also for a while that only Uber Black could pick up from the airports and not Uber X, correct?
Depends where. Depends the state. Some places don't allow it.
No, it depends on regulation. Yeah? Okay, here, you have some more. If you don't have any more, then that's all we have.
It's technically a private thing in the airport.
So let's go weiter. So the Gemara goes weiter, and this is very interesting, that Rav Huna Bereder Rabbi Yeshua says that if someone lives in a city and someone else doesn't live in the city, one who lives in the city can prevent someone else from opening shop in that city. Meaning, right, the Torah actually is pretty pro-regulation. That we want to protect the people living in this city, that the local authorities have the ability and the right to regulate who's going to open shop. They have the responsibility, in effect, to ensure that their local citizens have the ability for parnasa.
That's the basis of the shulchan.
Yeah. However, if the outsider is going to pay taxes to the local municipality, then they can open up shop, right? So let's just say, for example, Uber says, that's fine, we'll pay the same fees, quote unquote, that the taxis are paying, not a medallion fee. But let's just say there were taxes that on every ride a taxi's paying. What? They don't? Are they used to?
One sold like 3 years ago.
No, they just sold recently.
They just sold to Brooklyn a new thing with the yellow caps.
No, yellow caps they also offer new medallions. Every once in a while they'll sell new medallions.
Oh, so anyway,
Well, that's like conglomerates, yeah.
the Mordechai comes in and says that someone from outside a city can come set up shop as long as he's willing to pay taxes. Right? He doesn't have to move there and pay taxes. As long as he's going to pay taxes, he can come into town. However, since it's so easy, according to halacha, all you have to do is pay taxes and move into town, there is extra judicial power given to local authorities, to the local people in the Movi in this neighborhood, and they can stop someone from setting up shop. So you are allowed to. However, on top of that, that is superseded by the ability of local authorities to prevent someone, perhaps for whatever reason they can think of doing this. Now, this is where it gets very interesting and practical. The Nemuki Yosef brings a machlokus between the Rimigash and the Ramban. And the Rimigash says that the only way a local store owner can prevent someone coming in is if they're going to be selling at the same price, right? There's no inherent advantage. What's the point? Why are you going to come to town and you're selling at the same price? I live here. You can't come to town and set up shop. Price. However, if your price will be lower, right, then the benefit of all the consumers, perhaps, according to halacha, it seems over here, would outweigh the detriment, the loss that will happen from the store owner, and therefore will allow him to move into town, according to the Rimigash. So, Uber is saying we're giving lower prices. He's coming, he's giving lower prices.